prvi okrogli mizi Centra za tehnologije genske in celične terapije, se pravi projekta v okviru nacionalnega kemijskega inštituta, nacionalnega pravim zaradi tega, ker gre za National Institute of Chemistry. In razen te najave, ki sem jo zdaj povedal, je celoten dogodek teče v angleščini. Tako da, from now on, I shall switch to English. The whole event is an event for experts. Happy to see you in the room, and also welcome to everybody online. The online recording will be available onwards on our webpage, and thank you to SDA for covering this. So I will just do a short introduction, introduce my guests, and then we will go into the topic, which is the meat of today's presentation. So we will talk about advanced therapy medicinal products. I'm sure everybody here knows really well what we are talking about. Just briefly about where we are in terms of CET-GCT. We were established last September. There is a grant that comes from three sources. One is Republic of Slovenia, second one European Union, and there's also a grant from the UK Research and Innovation Fund. We have a 6-year program. We decided to have these panel discussions twice per year. The next one is on 27th of November. We will talk about clinical research. And we intend to have further towards, in all this program, we will have this twice a year. So 11 are to be in front of us. This is the first one. Hopefully they will become better and better. Currently there are 4 people who work on this, and I'm really happy that we are capable of trailblazing a new way. But of course, in a very safe and I would say strong arms of the National Institute of Chemistry. So this is where we are. In terms of what we are talking about today, we boil this down to 4 main topics. So we know it's a very long way. We know that there is a lack of knowledge. So sometimes people might say that it's unpredictable, but in the discussions we had in the preparatory phase, I agreed with one of my panelists that actually there is a lack of knowledge, not that the paths are super unclear. So I changed my mind there. There are some challenges and opportunities, but we can address them, and we can also participate in development of new regulation, and of course, what draws us forward. I will declare my interest here, so I will start with the bottom, and I come to the interest. I have to declare my interest that I'm also affiliated with Zveza organizacij pacientov Slovenije, patient organization, and Vesna Venture Capital, a deep tech fund. I can talk about it off topic. So today with us, we have Suzana Vidic from the regulator, Damjan Osredkar, our clinician from Pediatric Clinic at the University Medical Center Ljubljana. Trudy Straitmas comes from, is our first online participant. She comes from UMC, so a hospital in Utrecht, Netherlands. We also have Leila Amini. She comes from Charité Berlin. There is a Berlin Center of Advanced Therapies, a department within the hospital, and Dr. Tanja Španić. Another declaration of interest, which is informal, my friend for already very long time, very strong patient advocate, I would say. I'm sure strong contribution to today's debate. Now, I will not try to take you through these bullets because they are given on the website. So this is not added value because it exists somewhere, and this is just to kick off. These lines that you see here at the ceiling are actually the main idea of today's panel. And the idea is, I will say who it comes from. Thank you, Dr. Vidic, for stating this. So on the basis of the discussion, I made this visual representation. So you see the saying here on the ceiling, but it's easier to explain it here. So if we start at the bench here and go to bed, to patients, so to the market, we start in the lab. We want to come after 10, 15 years, or hopefully in a shorter time, we want to come to release a new drug on the market, perhaps not for 4 billion euro, like I had a discussion with Professor Mauri earlier today, but a little bit less. What happens are 2 processes. One is that, of course, we need more money, we need more people, there is more complexity. But the thing we are not aware of is that demands actually require us to be more and more unified. So we have to basically, and this is something that hopefully we will start acknowledging, that it's not enough just to go for a result, like a patient is healed, but we actually have to control the whole process, including the last straw that we are using in the lab. And this is the hard thing. We are create here totally unified here. So I will not, without further ado, we will jump into this, and I will stop the sharing because actually this is where the discussion starts. So I will start with the patient, which is an important thing for the role that Tanya and I share. And I will start with the medical need, and then we will proceed to clinicians, and finally we will come to researchers. And the framework in which we are and what we are talking about today is actually the main dish of today is regulation. So please, Tanya, what is the medical need? Why are we here today?
First, thank you, Gregor, and the organizers for the invitation. As Gregor said, I am involved with patient advocacy for almost 15 years. But I have another thing to declare. As my previous life, I used to be a scientist, so I have a PhD in molecular neuroscience. Since I quit science, I now like to bring more science to patients and connect those two fields. The thing is that being a patient or being a user of the, let's say, healthcare system, is that maybe today is me, tomorrow is you, everybody is actually users of this system. Getting the diagnosis, either a cancer or a very rare disease, we always want to get healthy again. So if we are not experiencing like a very common disease, like let's say diabetes or I don't know, breast cancer, that's the field I know most, we usually lack a lot of treatment, or we don't see so many positive outcomes as we would expect. I'll go maybe a little bit back and say, of course we need treatments, of course all unmet needs, as each diagnosis which is not cured is unmet need. But the thing is that what we see within the patient community or within the general public, that there's still a lot of lack of awareness. Not just awareness of, you know, today we hear a lot about new treatments, exciting treatment, immunotherapy in cancer. I think that most of us were really super excited about it, but we were not aware of all the late onsets of the side effects and consequences that this brings. Same I can say for new therapies, cell therapies, gene therapies that are oncoming. If I go back to the times when I was in the lab and all these new super precise techniques were arising, I think that most of us were really excited and thought, oh, we will cure now every single cancer and we will repair every single genome with any genetic alterations. Unfortunately, 20 years later, we're still not there. So what that means, that's just to summarize briefly, we have to work more together. Also, patient-driven research is not always the best driven research. Unmet needs for us is maybe not the real answer to the science or medical professionals, healthcare professionals. But that's why we have to work together and bring the best solutions for everybody. Of course, when you are affected, when you are experiencing the disease, you don't care, you become very selfish. You want to get your health back, you want to survive, you want to live. Not just survive, you want to live. So I am a big and strong advocate for patient-driven research, but not just patient-driven. In co-creation with healthcare professionals, scientists, and with realistic outcomes. Not bringing just fake hope, fake potential outcomes that would cure someone, but also with the perspective of the future. That's why even regulatory sites like EMA, FDA, are already bringing patient perspective, patient-reported outcomes into secondary endpoints of the trials, which is really a great effort and a great advantage in the past 10 years. But we still see a lot of, let's say, unmet needs or lack of this co-creation from the very beginning. And in cell therapies or in very rare diseases, this field is probably even better to do this than in common diseases where we have a lot of patients in the same diagnosis.
All right, thank you very much, Tanya. I will now go to one of our online participants. I will ask Trudy, who is currently in the development of CAR-T at UMC Utrecht, to tell how this reflects to what you are currently doing, and then we will go forward towards the regulatory process. So if I understand correctly, Trudy, you're somewhere in the middle.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. Indeed, I'm a researcher, biomedical scientist from origin, and I have been developing cell therapy that was a concept from our own university into a clinical phase 1 trial. So I've been really witnessing from our gene of interest via in vitro and in vivo models in men, and this was I have to say, extremely nice and interesting journey. So I really also want to tell how inspiring, although all the complexity and hurdles you face, this is such an satisfying job. However, it's totally different from just doing research and science in the lab. So what you really encounter is the complexity Gregor just described, with all the different stakeholders, the different disciplines that you encounter, the actually different worlds that you have to go through and that you have to take along into your journey to get something in a clinical trial. That goes from the scientist through the GMP pharmacists, the regulators, the clinicians. They are all trained really differently. They have a different mindset, but you have to really work together in a team, because you work towards one goal. You want to get this drug into a patient. So you really have to start focusing on this one product and then make that into your next phase. And I think what also really nice, what the patient advocate just said, is that it's really difficult as a scientist, but also a clinician, to have this future perspective in mind. But it's so important that it's not only about treating my phase 1 patients, but what are you going to do afterwards? So you really have to already think along at an early stage. What are the options within the regulatory and legal framework that are in today? So that's also what I wanted to give to the audience.
Thank you. You emphasize teamwork. Now, Damjan, what is teamwork in your hospital like? It's a little bit of a provocation, so you can describe the problems you're facing, because they're really real.
Yeah. So,
sorry, Trudy, did I interrupt? I apologize, Trudy. Please continue. I sort of interrupted you. You finish first, then Damjan goes.
Oh, okay. Okay, I thought you were asking me the question about teamwork in the hospital.
I jumped over. I
elaborate on that, but I can also give the word to the next one. It's fine.
You will come back later, so there will be a live discussion.
Sure.
Q&A comes after this initial set of what we want to discuss, and then open questions, right? So teamwork at Pediatric Clinic Ljubljana.
It depends a little bit what you're looking at, if you're looking at clinical work or if you're looking at the research part, but we know that it's very important. I'm not just from a theoretical perspective, but from a very practical perspective. We've been, until 2017, we were not able to treat monogenic diseases such as, for example, spinal muscular atrophy with novel disease-modifying treatments. But at that time, first one, but now we have 3 medicines that very efficiently treat these patients. So, for example, these patients would normally, untreated, die by the age of 2 years, but now being treated, we can expect, if we treat them pre-symptomatically, to be able to develop as completely healthy peers. So we have very good therapies now, and in order to take care of these patients, of course, you have to have a very good multidisciplinary team, which is essential, and without such a team, it wouldn't be possible to treat these patients with the drugs that already exist. But then we had also a story in which the Chemical Institute and Also, patients have been involved significantly. Development of the medicine for the CTNB1 syndrome, and this was for us a very novel kind of story, because we never even imagined that this is something that we could engage in. But then, first speaking with Ms. Mirošević, who was the mother of a child who approached us, and immediately we started thinking, how we could develop a network of collaboration. And as crazy as it sounded at first, we actually managed to, break through this very raw kind of obstacle at first, finding, the right researchers, not just in Slovenia, but also abroad, and making the first crucial steps of raising money for the first research steps, and then, bringing this to, much closer now to bringing the medicine to the patients, because as of now, we actually are starting to develop this gene replacement therapy for CTNB1 syndrome. The drug is already being developed, and we are in the phases where we are testing its safety and efficacy in the last phases, but also we are in heavy discussions with all the regulatory bodies, not just with JASMAP in Slovenia, but also with IMA already, because we know that this is essential. So, we would not be able to do even one step in this direction without very strong collaboration. And you have to have people you can trust. I think that's the most important. People who have knowledge, although I can tell you that, I was completely naive in some aspects of this kind of development, but, you learn with time. So knowledge is not the first and crucial thing. I think getting trustworthy partners who have the ability to bring, the knowledge and all the expertise to the group, that's kind of essential. So I think without this, you're lost. And as a clinician especially, obviously my preclinical knowledge is limited, although I did some research in that field, but you need very strong collaborators from different fields, also from the regulatory part, in order to move these kind of stories forward. So collaboration is key.
Thank you. Now let's go a little bit more towards the focus. Leila, I will ask you to tell us about the difference in the chosen path. So we discussed about what the strategy of CTGCT is, and the question was very direct. Are you developing this on the academic pathway, or is it a startup way? So what was my answer at that time? But it's not been set. Nevertheless, after the discussion with Leila, before giving you the word, after this we coined the slogan. So the slogan tells a little bit about what we want to do. Leila, our slogan is research to benefit patients. So what's your view of this strategic decision?
Yeah, thank you very much also for the invitation, and to the previous speakers. I think they raised very important points. I think one decision one has to make is whether you as a academic center want to offer these therapies, or you actually want to commercialize them. And there are several advantages and disadvantages of both strategies, I think. So medical centers themselves maybe can offer at a lower price, which you already indicated as maybe one of your aims. So they can maybe produce and only charge the costs of production and the direct costs, whereas as a company or startup, of course, you want to make some profit and need money to invest in other projects and further developments to keep your company running and sustainable. So one other advantage maybe of the academic center is that you have the patients directly in place. So many of the companies, they have centralized manufacturing. They send samples or the starting material from the patient somewhere, kilometers or even thousands of kilometers to a production site, which if you have manufacturing at your site, you can do it directly in your center, which skips the round of cryopreservation maybe. So you will have the product available on point, so in a shorter time, which studies at other examples have shown can be crucial for the patient, because it may be, or he or she maybe needs it at a certain time to actually survive. So many patients actually at the moment are dying, waiting for their cell and gene therapy products, which is another advantage that you can have as an academic center connected to a clinic, and then producing on point directly for the patient and applying the product as soon as possible, if we think of autologous products, of course.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Vidic, thank you for giving us the inspiration for this, for the topic. Also, there is this very important point of, okay, there is a lack of knowledge, but there are also ways to improve knowledge within the ecosystem locally and internationally. We are very happy to have people helping us in this project. Like, for example, one of the milestones we had in the last 2 months was to get involvement of the partners to help us advise on the GMP that we are about to create here. And we were happy because all these institutions that we partner with are large, as well as National Institute of Chemistry, 400 people, just 4 of us are here. So how do we get the attention? We got it, we are lucky, thank you to the UCL, Utrecht, Dresden, and Charité, all of them. But that's not enough. Where are we lacking in knowledge, in your experience, as an ecosystem, and how should we improve?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So first of all, I would just like to say that the views that I will discuss today are the views of the assessor for the ATPs, which means I may not necessarily cover all the regulatory aspects in this field. As regards the strategy for gaining the knowledge in this regulatory field, so maybe just for the very beginning, the regulation for the advanced medicinal products was applied in 2008 with the aim to provide high level of protection of human health and the rights, and not only that, so the marketing of this product can be given after marketing authorization, which is indeed a long story of development. I mean, long time for the development. But within the regulations, there is a big awareness of the fact that there are unmet medical needs and there are diseases with life-threatening life-threatening diseases, and there might be promising medicines which may have a major therapeutic advantage over the other therapies. So in this way, within the regulation, there are several regulatory activities, supportive activities, which allows developers to get in early contact or interaction with the regulators, and this is also encouraged. So those activities are like scientific advices, or maybe informal meetings where you can get in interaction with the regulators very early in development, where you can introduce the regulators the specific properties of your product, or for which indication you are developing and for which target population. So the regulators can really look at the product for this specific perspective, and also to give the developers the advice how to continue with the development within the regulatory requirements. So it's really crucial to have this very, very early interaction with the regulators, which will definitely provide or will prevent potential development failures. But to continue with that, so it's still there are other activities available or measures which support small or medium enterprises or academic researchers in a way that can provide the scientific advices. And another point is that they can also guide you, or maybe recognize if the product can be applied for the PRIME program. PRIME program means that you get rapporteur appointed very early in the beginning of the development, which means that you go with the development in the interaction with the experts, which are at the European Medicine Agency, and in close collaboration also with the experts from the national competent authorities. So these are all pathways which can really improve the knowledge and have even support. Supports are also given with fee reductions for separate procedures that I mentioned. So these are one aspect. But another one is also not only these supporting activities, there are also legal provisions that are based on that are foreseen in legislation. So we have also a capability for to facilitate the access by conditional marketing authorization or with the accelerated assessment. So many of these are available. So, but just a message would be mainly to have a close interaction with the regulators from the very beginning, because this is really broad. So the development of the product covers the pharmaceutical, non-clinical development, clinical development in phase 1, 2, and the confirmatory phase 3 studies. So all these phases can take very, very long time, but as I said, this could be facilitated by preventing many failures that can happen during the development, and also the ATMPs are so specific in their intrinsic properties that it's really important that you get know to regulators what type of product you have, what are the specifics for this product, so that together with the regulators you can design the development in a way that will the best fit the requirements for this product.
Thank you very much. There will be an add-on question for later for you. I was very curious, and we didn't touch this, that when you go to EMA, you are always you are surprised at the level of knowledge. So there is obviously a huge amount of knowledge, and we shouldn't disregard that. So please comment that later on, if that's okay with you. I would like to jump to Leila on a webinar that, my path here is rather from the patient side than from the technological. So I have to admit that biotechnology is a little bit diddle squat for me still. So I kudos to all the experts here. Often we don't understand many things. I do understand clinicians very well, I have to say. I have no problems in talking to them. So I wonder how much clinicians understand, but I first go to Leila and then Damjan to you. So Leila, the message you gave there in the webinar, we also published the link to the webinar that Charité did, is that perhaps if you want to do translation, you have to go for something else than excellence in research. Can you comment that?
Yeah, sure. So so far, maybe the classical basic research everyone knows is resulting in research papers and big publications, and there's always like a genius behind the project. And I think we need to have a change in mind if we actually want to live translation and foster translation in a more efficient way. As was already pointed out, and it's basically the same also on the scientist side, we need a big team to actually be able to translate something into the clinic and actually be successful in testing cell and gene therapies. And therefore, this is not helpful to have like one genius behind a project. We actually need to acknowledge all the people which are required. So we need different expertise. We need the expertise from the basic scientists, but we also need the expertise from, for example, the GMP people, putting this into a process which is actually realizable under the current legislation. Then we need, of course, the patients who give in their input, the clinicians who plan the clinical protocol and all other aspects of the clinical trial. So everyone has to work hand in hand, and every expertise needs to be in place and also somehow acknowledged. So at our institute, we're trying to develop a novel system, like to acknowledge translational efforts, to actually motivate people to go this way, because it's a lot of effort and you need a very long breath if you actually want to take your project from the publication further than to a clinical realization. And yeah, I think this is crucial to motivate people. And then also we have some programs where we introduce, for example, clinicians also into the science, called the Clinician Scientist Program. So there actually clinicians can dedicate a defined time of their working time also for science, and vice versa. So scientists are also motivated to go into the clinic and shadow maybe clinicians to understand maybe their problems and requirements. And then we hope that this fosters the collaboration, the team spirit, and then in the end leads to a more efficient translational process, and not having only like examples of successful translation, but really being productive on a regular basis, translating a lot of the things which are going on maybe in the universities also into actual treatments and therapies, and then going also back from the back to the bench side to optimize these therapies and maybe even use the full potential of what we can gain.
Thank you very much. So the claim I'm trying to test on you, Damjan, is where do we have a larger gap? Is it between, there are three target audiences. I'm a marketer, so all of my career I've been working in marketing. Still today, although I'm a patient advocate, I still see myself working more with people than with technologies. So that's why I will talk about target audiences. So there are three that we have set in the CTGCT, just to make it very clear what we are doing at a certain point of time. One is researchers, clinicians, and patients. My claim, and you can confirm or refute, is that the gap between the clinicians and patients is smaller than the gap between the researchers and clinicians. What do you say to that?
Yeah, thank you. And I also thank you for the invitation. I didn't do that on a previous question, but still I'm grateful. Anyways, I have tasted both kind of fields, being a researcher, but also I'm a clinician, working as a clinician now. So when I was a postdoc, you decide which field you're interested in, you focus in this field, you find a good mentor, and then you can do very clean, very neat research. You design your projects, and that works very nicely, and I enjoy that part. But when you're a clinician, you understand that this clean research needs to be done, and I had dedicated time for that kind of research. Now, there's almost no outpatient clinic that I would have that a parent would not come to me and ask, like we just found that my child has a rare disease, it's a monogenic disease, so we would like also for you to start a gene therapy. So this is completely the other end of the story. And there's this massive gap between, doing proper research, I mean nice clinical, preclinical research, and, bringing a therapy, to the patient. So for me, the most difficult part is, I do understand how research works, and I do understand the needs of these patients, and obviously the patients with these very nice stories that we are talking about in different publics are very encouraged that this kind of thing is now possible to do. For me, the most difficult part is kind of finding the path which is an enormous path. It takes years for that, and I can try scaling in my mind, going from a particular research project into something that big pharma can do, investing a lot of money into all these phases of studies. But, and we do, because we do have experience. We participate in some, phase 3 studies at our hospital, so we know how elaborate it is. Every little detail has to be noted. We have one person employed to help us with all the studies we participate in, because it's so much work. And for me, the main problem at the beginning is already that I don't have dedicated time to focus on this kind of development and all this multitasking I do in my spare time and in the nights. And of course, that's not perfect if you want to do research on a proper level. So we do try. Of course, you're also very limited in your time, and you have to find crucial partners that will, be able to take part of the burden, or actually a big part of the burden on themselves, like preclinical clinicians who will do, who will develop certain drug candidates, and then we also benefited extremely from talking to Miyazamapa and Ima on our way with developing the medicine for the CTNB1 syndrome, because they gave us very key questions. For example, we were discussing whether we should work only with mice models or we should go for non-human primates as well, and we got an answer on that. And they said, so you want to cure this disease, but are you sure you know what cells you need to focus on, and things like that. And we were not really thinking in that kind of lines, when we started, because of course the field is too big for a small little group to focus on all that. So I think if there would be already established bodies like the center that we are about to have in Slovenia, where a big chunk of this knowledge will be stored, and there will be researchers who will be willing to collaborate, that actually will help a lot. And if we know that we have people, at the regulatory agencies who are very open to this kind of development, that's also key. And then I think, one part that is still missing is the funding of this kind of research. And we've, in the CTNB1 syndrome, this was funded by the CTNB1 Foundation, going through media calls, and that's far from perfect, because that kind of, the kind of impression that it gives is that, in Slovenia, it's not well taken care of for rare diseases and the patients, where in fact we have very good care for patients with rare diseases. We can offer those patients much more than in many bigger and more in richer countries. So I think it's very well taken care of, but we have to have some funding sources which would be more readily available for projects where this kind of drugs would be developed.
Thank you very much. The question was partly inspired by a book that many of you know, which is Complications by Atul Gawande. And he starts the book with the basic idea that medicine is not science. And then he tells how many times it shows that people are different, so that each and every one, the pathways that you have, signaling pathways, chemistry, biology, etc., that there are differences in not in the basic principles, but the way it's tuning is different, right? And then there might be other differences. I shall not talk about this in detail. I don't know enough about the story, but I'm interested in the complications. So Trudy, what are the things that go wrong when you do enter your study? What goes wrong? As a learning. So again, it's not prodding to show where we are bad, not at all, but it's rather how to expect, what are the challenges. Thank you.
There are many things, but I might start with sharing that we are in Utrecht started an innovation center for advanced therapies by learning from our own journey that we really feel that we have to improve the infrastructure in big organizations like academic centers and like you're also aiming to. And there we also talk then with PIs that have a great preclinical work and a Nature publication, and then they're really so enthusiastic, have nice young postdocs, and want to bring this, in this case is also rare disease, to the clinic. And then they come to us, and they also, because we are also having tools in the Netherlands to early interact with regulatory authorities, which is indeed really helpful. However, there is still a lack there, because the clinician think, oh, well, there's this program and we can go to the regulatory authorities. Let's think of some questions and press send and then talk to them. However, then when you do the reality check with these PIs, they're having still 3 options of a potential drug in mind. They didn't even make the decision yet which one to go to the clinic. So if you start to interact with the regulatory authorities, you do need proper preparation, and you also do need some some guidance on your side that knows how to interact with the regulator, although they're really willing and friendly and open. So because that's really what they are, we do not have to be afraid, but you do need to be prepared, and you do also need to know how to prepare this, because you also don't want to get answers answers that yet you don't want to hear, let's say. So you really have to really phrase it correctly. So I think it's really very important to also get in the academic centers, and also in your center that you're building, that you get support for clinicians or PIs that can help you with these interactions, because it's a time investment, and you need a specific knowledge there. So there it can go wrong, and then there are also other options of processes that are very complicated. To bring really a complex process that is validated in your mouse models into a GMP environment, that's not so trivial. You really need indeed to think not in publications what we are trained to do, but you really have to do a process change. You have to have people that really are good at looking into tiny whiny details. You have to write your documentation in a very structured, standard way. So there it's often underestimated how much effort and disciplines that costs to make that transition. There you have to, what I also really want to there acknowledge then all the disciplines. I find it very nice how you phrase that, that all the disciplines are equally important here, and that is really so important to have this multidisciplinary team where you all acknowledge each other's expertise. But there we see that it often goes wrong, the interest between the regulations or the regulatory part and the finances or your strategy of your institute. So they are really high over sometimes hurdles that you have to step over and start to work as a team.
All right. Let us again try to refocus on the topic that we have to tackle today. So it's not all of the ATMP. It's not doing everything at once. It's more on regulation. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't touch upon some of the topics, but I would say in this respect, this multidisciplinary approach, I will tell you how we teach salespeople to sell more. And then you will see how this applies to what we are trying to say, why this applies to regulatory process. It sounds very bizarre, but it makes sense. If you want to increase sales, you don't send your people out into the field and say, I don't care, you just bring me the million that is the target you have to bring. Actually, you have to do something else. You have to be aware that all processes in nature, including sales, are growth processes. And a growth process is something that you first put a seed into the ground, and then you wait, and then something comes out, and too much care kills actually the plant. You know that, right? You have to leave it some freedom. But the point is the following. The model is called CAR, C-A-R, so it's easy. We like driving cars, correct? So first is competencies. We have to develop competencies. Then we go to activities, and then finally we get results. And those are not aligned. We have to get more knowledge. So how do we apply a sales model to regulation? Meaning, Damjan found a way to talk to you, to talk to Emma. You mentioned this. There obviously is, like there are gaps. We need to learn. There are PIs. We have different expectations. We don't know what people do, etc. How do we build competencies? And then we will, but in the field of regulation. And we will try to tackle everything in the next 10 years, right? So that's the idea, not to do everything. There was a nice comment. I asked somebody today, what is this? And the first response was work in progress. So how do we build competencies, and I will ask Tanya, what's your thinking, because I think you have a lot of thoughts here.
Well, I think this is no an easy answer or what's need to be done. We heard a lot about the gaps, about a lack of maybe resources, even though I would disagree on this, because today we have so many resources, so many things in one place. UMC is one of the great examples, and we have really good chance to collaborate with them also. But I think it's a more thing that we are not aware at the very beginning that we have to collaborate with many stakeholders. Let's call them stakeholders. So Damjan had that luck. He was a researcher and clinician, and he was approached by patients. But then we have to map those people that we would collaborate with. Of course, authorities and researchers are very important, but there are so many other things that we tend to forget and tend not to include. Just from the experience, and also when we build this circle of trust and trustworthy people that we are going to work, is probably not easy. When you are affected, when you are a patient, when you are a parent or a caregiver, you want answers quickly. And we are not aware that from basic research, translational, clinical, actually, and product, or the, let's say, drug or treatment, because I don't believe that cell therapies are drugs, they're treatment for me. It's not a year or 2 years, it could be 10, 15 years. But we want answers now. So that's why I said at the very beginning that patient-driven research is not the best one, because we are too passionate, we are too affected, we are too emotional. That's why we need balance. And doctors are always, I have to say this, and I may be biased, but doctors are more on our side. They see patients, they see them daily, they see the pain that we are going through, emotional and physical, and that's why we need balance on the other side from the scientists, from the regulatories, and maybe sometimes also from the general public, and support from the general public. That's why I think this environment is very important, and why we have to work together. Of course, education, resources, open source of data is very important in this case. But also it's on our side, go a little bit now to my patient community side, that we build our community, that we train, that we educate our community, that you have also someone from our side that you can invite on your early ideas. In rare diseases, it's much more different, because it's maybe only few people in Slovenia that are affected, and it's really working one-on-one, solving this case. But in conditions like cancer or other chronic non-communicable diseases, it's broader public, and then it's on our side that we are not just, ticking the box. We have a patient around the table. We will get the patient perspective, but that we are also trained, that we know what clinical trial is and how long does that take. I would just go a little bit back earlier, talking about the authorities and regulatory agencies. Both FDA and DMA and more national agencies collaborate a lot with the patient community. They provide trainings about ethical committees, about involvement in procedures, approval procedures. We are already involved in all of these stages. On national level not, but at the European level we are. And the thing is that at that point you really see this long pathway, and this translation, we would like to see it shorter. We're aware that safety, of course, is first, but sometimes some administrative procedures make it much longer. So I think that we learned something during pandemics, that if we all work together and we all have the same goal, things can go faster, and I hope that we will all learn something from that and bring some good solutions sooner on the market and closer to the patients.
Thank you. We will take another 10 minutes to discuss in the panel, and then I will invite the audience to pose your questions. If you don't want to do that, then I will ask you, because I know, I would say, at least half of the audience here, and I'm really privileged to do so. I'm in the right audience there. So Suzana, I will go to you again. So internationally, there is cooperation between patient organizations and the authorities, the regulators. I will be very, I would say, selfish. So how do we as Zveza organizacij pacientov Slovenije improve us and you in the process as well? Because we need to learn more. There is a section for rare diseases that we formed. There are a few members of this section are here. So we are very keen on collaborating. And it's for the future. It's not just first thoughts and then we should discuss later on. If we are privileged to do so, we would be very happy.
So I have to admit also that, first of all, yeah, it's even for the regulators, it's actually quite difficult to find the balance between the need for all the data that are required with regard to the efficacy, safety, and quality of the product on the one side, and on the other side, the need that the medicine can get earlier access the patients. That's definitely so. Even for us, it's very important that we have interaction not only with the developers but also with the clinicians, so that in a way, by all the justification about the disease that needs to be treated, there are always some kind of risk-based approaches which can facilitate also the process of the medicine to get to the patient. So how to, on your question, how to start collaboration, it's very easy, just contact us.
Thank
so
you.
We cannot really, well, maybe we sometimes know from media that something is going on, and of course we are, every time we have kind of webinars or presentation for different regulatory topics, we always say, yes, please contact us. We are available to provide you support, to guide you during, throughout the regulatory requirements, but the best way is to contact us. So that's the only way.
Thank you. So let us stick to the educational part. I would like to mention one of the courses that also I feel not just myself but our team was contributing a lot is EATRIS. Some of you are aware of it. Some even made recommendations about it, which we saw. And it was in Slovenia. The EATRIS project was conducted by the Faculty for Pharmacy. It takes you several hours to go through the various videos, but you do learn a lot. Now, in my understanding, sometimes we just see a part of the whole, like an elephant, like blind people trying to understand what an elephant is. Somebody sees or touches the trunk, the other one a foot, the third one the tooth or whatever that extension is called. And somehow we have to create a common picture. Now, having this common picture is extremely valuable, so we do need more of that. Leila, we found your, as said before, we found your webinar interesting. How did that come about? How did you put that together? Why did you put it together? It's nicely balanced, actually very short. It takes you just a couple of hours to go through it, and there you find the final recommendations, which really struck with me, the recommendation not to necessarily go for excellence, which is the question from before. But how does one go about creating a webinar like that? What is the thinking process behind that, Leila?
Yeah, actually, this is a European-wide project, and many universities are involved in this project. And it's called the Healthcare Innovation Academy. And there are different aspects, such as precision medicine, but also digital medicine, or like things like this, which are incorporated in part of the whole curriculum. And we as Charité were together with Karolinska, part of the precision medicine and personalized medicine part. And because our focus is ATMPs, we wanted to make this as a course. And actually the part you saw is just the beginning. So there's the introductory part of this. And currently we are finalizing the advanced course on ATMPs, which will be available approximately in 1 month. Starting of July, I think you can then start to enroll into the course. The first part will be for free, but at some point the European Innovation Institute will then also charge the participants. And we still don't know how we will continue it, but we actually want to continue it because we have very interesting speakers from different universities, also from the US and from all over Europe, included in the advanced course, which give a webinar, and then afterwards we invite them again for a Q&A session, which was between then people from our institute asking some questions to the experts. And I hope this is really valuable also for the whole community to start to look at these discussions and maybe get inspired and then start their own discussions with the respective people. And yeah, we actually want to continue and would also be really grateful if people can give us feedback on this course and maybe how we can continue it maybe as a European initiative and even extend the course. And there's also the idea maybe of then having a regular session where we can invite people on scientific but also ethical and other issues all amongst the ATMP field.
All right, thank you very much. With that, I would just like to ask my colleague Daria to tell us about the webinar that it's not a webinar, it's the EATRIS course that she's enrolling in. A few words, Daria, please, about the EATRIS happening in June. When is it happening?
It's also at Faculty of Pharmacy.
So it's live here?
Yes, it's live here. It's happening 2nd week of June.
Yeah.
And it's actually on their website. I think it's kind of an extension of advanced course.
Yeah, so it went beyond. Hopefully we will get the scientific director. I met him at the European Patient Forum general meeting in April. We will get him to a scientific partner conference that we will do at CTGCT on October 16th to 18th. The 18th will be open to general audience. On 16th and 18th, we will have a closed party. Sorry, guys. All right? Okay, thank you for now. Thank you for opening this. So I will still try to use the presence of all of you and ask 2 questions. One, who has a GMP and who wants to build one? Can you please raise your hands? Who has a GMP? 1, 2, 3. I don't know how to count, basically. Urška, you didn't? You don't? No? All right. Sorry. Some things are not to be told everywhere, right? Who wants to build one? Yeah? Moitza, we do. It's just us, you? Where are you coming from?
Institute for Microbiology.
Thank you. Thank you for the intervention. So, it's now about 12 o'clock. We will open the floor, if I may, panelists. Is there something that you need to tell before doing this? No. Thank you. So any questions in the room regarding the ATMP regulation, where we are, how to proceed, what you expected from this meeting? We might even close the meeting if everything goes, really sour. No? Gordana, you want to ask a question? Okay. The mic is yours.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you organizers to put together all this audience. I would share first my experience as a physician, been practicing for 37 years, and I know the difference between procedures, regulations, and variety of the human body. Just to prove my case, I'm working as a family physician and emergency doctor medicine, and my procedures for emergency medicine changed 5 times. 5 times in my career.
Over the career.
Over the career. So
right.
Which procedure was the best? The best which works for the patient.
All right.
And my experience in few months before is that we clinicians, doctors, we don't meet researchers from biology field. Biologists, they knew everything about the cells, everything about the physiology, but they can't teach us that stuff, I would say as stuff, because it's enormous knowledge. And we need this knowledge in a clinical practice, but we don't have time, opportunity, or whatever is needed to get that knowledge in an infusion way. So what we need is a collaborator from the biology field. And for the regulators, I'm so happy that you're here and that you understand the needs of the patients, because sometimes I change my emergency procedures in order to facilitate the process of the treatment of the patient. And even my nurses and the nurses staff who are very educated and very trained, they say, "Doc, why did you do that?" And from my experience on the emergency medicine, in 8 cases out of 10, a doctor is not needed in emergency room because all the procedures are already set up, but 2 patients will die if doctor is not there. I'm saying that for the emergency room or for the emergency car as well. So I'm still working on the field, and 2 patients are alive out of 10 because I'm there and a doctor is there. So the variety of the human body is that enormous. And I'm happy that Gregor started this discussion in Chemistry Institute, and I'm looking forward to collaboration. And the question is, how would you as a regulator body enhance our collaboration in terms of production of medication? I'm here because I'm a physician. I need a treatment. I need a treatment for not just rare diseases, some rare diseases as well, but I need a treatment for especially oncology diseases. We are living longer. In my career, the life expectancy time in Slovenia enhanced for 15 years for ladies and 13 years for men. So I'm 63 already, and I'm starting the 4th career, because the patients are here and they are getting older and they have chronic diseases and they have chronic not communicable diseases and they have cancer. And treatments are available here. And I'm so happy that some other institutes in Europe, there are institutes attached to the hospitals, because big pharma can't do any more third phase clinical studies. It should be done during the process of the production of the medication, I would say medication or the treatment. So this gap between clinicians and producers is shortened in the clinical surrounding, and that's what they do in the big clinics. Slovenia doesn't have that opportunity, but we have Chemistry Institute, and we have regulators, and we have clinicians, and we have patients.
Thank you, thank you. It was also a comment, and would you like to join in on commenting this?
Maybe I can comment in this way, that it's really important that you know about all the available tools that are in the regulatory field. For example, for this what you were talking, there is also the compassionate use. So some products are already in the development. For the compassionate use, there should be in the late stage of development, but still, if it's there, it is already developed. If you know that there is option for the compassionate use, as a clinician, this is for the group of patients, but it's possible. So the way how to come it's just to know for all the regulatory tools or the measures that are available, then I think there are options for the patients and for the clinicians in that way. Yes, so this is for the products which are not authorized, but based on the risk approach. So looking at the patient, if it's unmet medical need or there is a life-threatening disease, then the compassionate use is an option, for example.
Thank you. Some other comments? All right. Borut, thank you for coming.
Borut Labena. I think in Slovenia we are also missing, I would like to, what you said, so-called translation centers. For example, you said that bigger institutes of bigger countries has it, but we have a good example in your neighbor country. Croatia got really a lot of funds for the translation centers, and there are special translation centers for medicine that do exactly that have clinicians in, researchers in, regulatory in, and they're really a few steps ahead of what we're trying also to do here. So it's not only big, I just wanted to comment, it's not only big countries and big institutes, it can be also done in smaller environments. It's usually also maybe even easier because a lot of people know each other. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. I will treat it as a comment, and I will introduce a comment. So obviously the environment is changing super fast, especially in this field. You know that the biggest investments in Slovenia, commercially and financially, currently are in biosimilars. So we have, I shall not go in details, but according to various sources, there are at least 4 separate entities, and the amount that is being invested is closing in on $1 billion. That's huge for Slovenia. And that's also dangerous for the ecosystem. So the ecosystems has to match this. So if we only build, let's call them big centers, and nothing against our colleagues who come from the big centers, then we face a danger that a forest faces when some of the trees close off the canopy. Closing off of the canopy doesn't give the sunlight to the under the bushes and the ecosystem, etc. So, shall we comment that, Damjan?
I wanted to comment in these lines. We as physicians, we were trained to be users of, you know, the available medicines that we have, and I think the biggest paradigm shift that you know, is happening actually that we could also be creators of, you know, the therapeutic procedures and medicines. And I think that's something that we haven't been trained on systematically. And, you know, we don't have to invent warm water all over again. We can just see how things have been done in other countries. And I think the comment was very, you know, on the spot that, you know, Inštitut za istraživanje mozga is like a great example how, you know, even small countries can make huge steps in this development. And I'll just give another example. When I was working as a postdoc at University of California, in the first half a year, I joined. I mean, there was a course on how to bring a good idea to a patent, and I think. It was not just a theoretical course, it was actually with very practical advice. I mean, there were people lecturing us, and they said, if you have this problem, come to me, I'll help you out. If you want sponsors, we'll arrange meetings with the angel investors and so forth. So it was very, you know, very practical, very hands-on, and I think this needs to be trained in our environment as well. We have definitely more than enough knowledge. There's enough smart people in Slovenia. And I think there's only the paths have to be kind of prepared for good ideas to, you know, to translate into some sort of a medicine or you know, a company that would produce something that would be of value for the community.
More comments coming. Before giving the mic to Mateja, I actually was thinking about how to introduce Mateja and Mio, who they don't need introduction. But what I can tell about both of you, Mateja and Mio, so Mateja Urlep, Mio Mirknežević, is that without you I wouldn't be in the field of biotechnology. So thank you very much, Mr. Biotechnology, which the mic comes to you later as well. So Mateja, please.
But I'm the mother of biopharmaceuticals for Slovenia. So yeah, well, I've been in biopharmaceuticals for more than 30 years on the industrial side. And what I have to say, Gregory, is to give you a challenge back, it's not biosimilars only. It's biopharmaceuticals, it's ATMPs, cell and gene therapies. So the investments in Slovenia are all around the area, including ATMPs. So you've got in this room some people who really know something about ATMPs. And I think this is a good opportunity for Slovenia because we do have this knowledge. In Slovenia, in a very small country, on a very small area, we do have a lot of knowledge. And, you know, from research to clinical science to patient, there is this background of regulation and industry. And we've got that in Slovenia as well. We've got experts in manufacturing, we've got experts in regulatory. So I give you this challenge back. So I think this is an opportunity for Slovenia to really have maybe more activities like this, and I really applaud you to organize all this, because we need to come together and share the knowledge. And I think, you know, what we've done on the, let's say, first challenge of the biopharmaceuticals, we can do also in ATMPs. But ATMPs, as you have said, Dr. Osredkar, this is really personalized medicine, specifically in cell therapies. And we need more closer collaboration than, you know, for the, let's say, big pills or even big, let's say, IV infusions or subcut injections of biopharmaceuticals. So I think Slovenia is well positioned, and we need just to collaborate and acknowledge what Trudy has said to us, that interdisciplinary teams are really important from the very early get-go, and that each and every scientist and expert in that team is equal to the others, and that we cannot make the progress or the fast progress of the development of the potential drugs without that close collaboration of interdisciplinary teams from the get-go. So, you know, you can learn, but the learning curve takes time, or you can acquire knowledge which is already here in Slovenia and in this room.
Yes, thank you. I will come for, so the mic will be with Tanya, but thank you. The main point I get is the knowledge is in this room. And it's a matter of trust and matter of also interest, whether it flows or it doesn't, but it's the landscape we have. So this is the people landscape. Exactly. So it starts with being in the same room. So thank you very much. There is a nice song in the musical Hamilton. It says, "The room where it happened." So if you want to listen to a nice musical, listen to that song as well. The room where it happened. So Tanya.
Thank you, Matea, for this really good starting point, because what I had in mind and what I want to say, of course, we need clinical trials. For oncology, the fact is that only 3 to 4% of patients are in the clinical trials, and we have to know that patients in those trials are very well selected and are not patients who are doctors seeing in their office every day. For breast cancer, around 1.5% of all breast cancer patients are in the trial. Very young patients, elderly with comorbidities and so on, are not including in the trials. So we need also real-world data. We need, especially in oncology, control groups, placebo trials are unethical, and that's what we will always argue. And I will have to say that we also miss this seat in Slovenia to be part of National Ethical Committee, because we still see proposal with placebo trials in oncology, and that's not acceptable. So real-world data should come. EMA finally, FDA is far ahead of us. EMA finally published second updated guidelines for real-world data as a control arm and so on. But what I would like to point out here is our Slovenian, and sorry for our international guests, exactly what Matea said. And I call this our national sport, so everybody protecting their own fields. We have a lot of knowledge. We are protecting our own fields and not collaborating. We are 2 million. For comprehensive cancer center, the rate is 3 to 4 million, and we have them 3. That's nonsense. We need to centralize the oncology care in one center, and we need a good network. The same is in pediatrics. We even need one, exactly one. We have rare diseases. We have to work with DRNs, with reference networks. We are in Europe. We have to work cross borders. There is a cross-border directive which in practical life doesn't exist. I can share that with you. I can share with you numerous examples from Slovenia and from other countries that are ongoing. It doesn't help that we have legislation if it doesn't live. So the thing is that in Slovenia, we will really have to work together, not just talking about this like in the past decade or 15 years, but really start collaborating, not favorizing one expert or whatever, work more together, share knowledge, don't close, open databases, anonymized, of course. Patient is always first. All data belongs to patient whenever. We struggle that a lot with the big pharma, with meta-analysis, because data after the trials are locked, and that's unacceptable for the research. So there's a lot of still unmet needs and obstacles, but more we talk, more we collaborate, I think that those gaps will be smaller, or they will be bridged.
Thank you. Robert, you raised your hand.
I did.
We also did some collaboration, so
yes,
please tell us.
Thank you. I was just going to present myself, Robert Zorec, and
yes.
I will, 15 minutes I will disappear, because I teach students, medical students and biochemistry students, exactly what Dr. Osredkar was saying. We have a course teaching students from the idea to the marketing authorization. So I had the privilege to be part of this CAT committee at EMA when it was established, and we learned about the importance of patient organizations participating. And that was a very interesting way to start and learn, and then soon after that we started to actually develop our own ATMP cell-based therapy for prostate cancer that actually passed the clinical trial. We did our best, whatever we could. You know, we are learning from, as pioneers, from scratch, and we do have this learning curve. In 2014, when the new Zakon o zdravili was published, we had a course with students, and 2 o'clock in the morning, a student would send to me, "Oh yes, but this is fantastic, but ATMPs are forbidden to be tested clinically in Slovenia." And that generated a lot of turmoil, how to solve this, and the regulation was very nice, that people actually understood that there was a lapse in that, and then we kind of sorted that out. The importance is we have a lot of people, a lot of knowledge, we need to collaborate, and we need to put trust. And trust also with people that actually at the moment need to fulfill a very important task, and that is provide rules for actually production of non-routine ATMPs. This is an open question for 10 years.
All right.
And this would certainly be of help to everybody who wants to join.
I have to manage the topic. There was an agreement that we will not enter that area at this round table. I am prepared to comment as a non-expert. Concerning the others, this is something that is a matter of an ongoing concern. That's all I shall say. I'm happy about it. And the next question goes to the lady here. So please introduce yourself.
Hello, so I'm Mojca Tajnik from Sartorius BIA Separations. We are based in Slovenia, in Ajdovščina. So there is also, let's say, a lot of knowledge there, 1 hour from here. We are based on, we are actually focused on purification of gene and cell therapy products. And since before you were mentioning all these different parties, there is, in my opinion, also a gap between research and manufacturing. And we are actually bridging this gap. So, for example, small companies that have more research-based level, they already start thinking about scalability, about a bigger scale. And I think this is very important also during the development of the process, that we are also already focusing on the bigger scale. And yeah, there are several successful stories also from our side. And from the regulatory basis, we see more and more focus is on purity. So that is more work for us, also in more and more on the cell therapy. Since before on gene therapy, there are already very high standards set that are even getting higher. And yeah, I think there is a lot of knowledge also from the production side in Slovenia.
Thank you very much. We are closing in on finishing soon. The closing words will be with all the panelists. So that's the right thing to do. So we will just take 2 more questions or 2 more comments. There were some hands, please. Can you pass the mic?
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, hello. My name is Tina Ivančić, and I'm here with 2 colleagues from Novartis. We are
Yes.
just ramping up now new facility for viral vector manufacturing. And we are really happy that you have this kind of panel discussions, because I think this is really beneficial to connect us in Slovenia here. But actually I would have a question for Ms. Suzana from JZMP. On this field of ATMP regulations, are you also connected with FDA? Do you have some lessons learned from the facilities in from US and so on? Because yeah, we also need to build up this knowledge at ourselves. This is new in Slovenia, new technology are coming to us, and yeah, how do you see this from your point of view?
Thank you.
So this is more related to the centralized procedures, and I would only comment that all the procedures are actually treated in a way that should be established within the European Union. So all the other aspects, if there are some manufacturing sites in the United States, these are kind of course, these are the global products, definitely, but are definitely treated case by case. So I cannot give just direct answer on that.
If I may comment, I think Labena has some FDA approved. No? So there is some knowledge with you, but as said, there's more knowledge in the room than there is time. And also the trust is also the common denominator. So the common denominator of trust, I will use a quote from Ernest Hemingway, and just before I do that, I will ask, is there another comment from the audience? Then we will go to the panelists. No? Thank you very much. The comment is the following, the quote, the world breaks everyone, but where it breaks us is where our power comes from. So things that go wrong, like some of the things are intimate, some of the things are, I don't know, failure, some of the things are disease, that's being broken as well. But how do we carry on from there? How do these top experts, including panelists, including international partners, how do they take this long path of cooperation? Because it's not so much that the knowledge is not in the room. That's my question for the panel. And now we will start with Dr. Vidic. So how do we gain trust? How do you gain trust in us?
It's definitely, as I mentioned from the very beginning and during the discussion, it's a continuous collaboration between the developers and the regulators, and also collaboration with the clinicians at the different stages of medicine development. So this is going hand by hand, I would say, because you have to understand even we regulators cannot know everything about the products. These are so specific products. So if it goes hand by hand, I think this is the best way how trust can be built, and also it's the most streamlined way to develop the medicinal product in time that would be available for the patients.
Thank you. Leila, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I think you have to show your reliability to earn trust from others. So you have to be responsible. You have to always give your best and be worth of trust of others. And you learn this in a mutual collaboration where you see that you can actually build on each other, help each other out. It doesn't have to be like one-sided. Like both sides have to show their reliability and prove that they are trustworthy to the other side to develop this situation, I would say.
Thank you very much. Damjan.
So I'm not an expert in how to build trust, but I would go from the other side and say that we have a very rare opportunity, I would say, as in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of movement in the right direction, and that kind of pulls people together. And I would argue that we could become a Silicon Valley in the biotechnology. We have everything that's needed, and I think if we kind of pull together this cart in the right direction, there could be many good things coming out of this kind of process. And I think discussions like this are important steps. There's other developments that are going to this direction. I think with more time that flows and more good things that happen, that will kind of bring trust that this is actually possible and that we can collaborate and not be deceived in this process.
When you mention Silicon Valley, I'd rather us to be like Kendall Park in Boston, which is stronger in this regard. Square, sorry, thank you very much. I think I learned that from you, but improperly, thank you. Trudy.
What I can say is what I find very important also in collaboration that you're transparent and open to each other as well, learning from each other's mistakes, but also be open about your goals, your strategy, your interests, and then find the mutual interest, like Laia says, that you can build built on.
Thank you very much. And the last word goes to our patients.
I can just second what previous panelists all said, and of course education is crucial, collaboration also, and we heard a lot about this today, that we need a couple of hours here and there. If you don't have a couple of hours, find the person who does, and you don't have to do it all alone, so that's the key.
Thank you very much, and with that, in spite of the fact that there are a few minutes left, we shall close the discussion. Please eat the food so that it doesn't go wasted. Please eat what was provided there, but don't feel forced. So you are actually welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you to the panelists.